I did a trip to SpaceX's Starbase. What did I find? The Starship Gigabay is advancing fast, Pad 2 is starting its test parcours, Ship 39 and Booster 18 are about to begin validation testing. Starship version 3 has arrived. When can we expect Flight 12 preparations? New Glenn does it all and becomes the second orbital rocket to land its booster. Rocket Lab's Neutron is delayed and France is shooting Baguettes to space. My name is Felix, welcome to What About It, let's dive right in. Starship updates. I've been there once again, trip number 9, and every time I go it's like a completely different place compared to my last visit, even though there's usually just around half a year between each visit. Let me take you on a tour of what Starbase currently looks like. The changes this time are very noticeable again. When you arrive at Starbase, you're currently greeted with a massive Gigabay construction site. It just doesn't come across in a video. It is monstrous, gigantic, incredibly large. Just add even more colorful words to it. It's huge. The 4 cranes installed on site to help construct this behemoth of a building tower over everything. The future is arriving in giant steps. A large number of beams were added in just 1 week, and first horizontal structures are forming as well. Those 4 cranes will help immensely with the construction. Moving just a bit further up, we can see Ship 39 inside Megabay 1. Amy Doering and our very own Jordan Guidry snapped some awe-inspiring shots of its front and its back. And those shots tell a story. Let's take a look together. First of all, the only thing missing in these pictures is the engine section. Ship 39 is far along. Raceways still need to be installed and parts of the plumbing are missing. Some of these components aren't even needed for a first cryo-proof test at Massey's though. We also got an image of the heat shield. Crunch wrap everywhere. This was to be expected. It also shows that the crunch wrap likely did improve heat shield performance during Flight 11. SpaceX is keeping the feature. The overall construction of heat shields at SpaceX has undergone a significant learning process since the early days. For comparison, here are Richard Gallagher's images taken for us of Ship 38 as it rolled out to the launch before Flight 11. You see all the white lines between the tiles? This is the flight when they went all out on the crunch wrap. More importantly though, there's something else very different between these 2 shields. Did you notice it? Let's show them next to each other. Do you see it now? Yes, no tiles are missing. While SpaceX left out a lot of tiles on Flight 11 and the flights before that to test various new approaches, such as insulating materials and different tiles, this seems to be missing on Ship 39. SpaceX collected tons of data during the last 2 flights as they finally went the way SpaceX needed them to go. Yes! All the way from a launch to the landing. Metallic heat tiles stained the shield orange. A lot of data was collected on heat penetration and other related factors. For Flight 12, which is currently expected to take place sometime in early January, SpaceX might go a different route. This is the goal, 2 flights down the line. And if that's the case, they have to start working towards it on Flight 12. Pretty simple. The ship catches the goal, and it seems like SpaceX might finally reduce tests and try going for a fully working shield instead of a Swiss cheese-like design to try to destroy the ship during re-entry. After all, they failed to destroy them, right? Tough ships. Another fantastic shot comes from Starship Gazer. He managed to snag a shot of Ship 39's brand new and completely redesigned fuel transfer interface. Yep, this is not just for tanking anymore. This is supposed to support back and forth atmospheric and vacuum operation. Contrary to what we believed for some time, this will be the interface used for orbital refueling. These studs at the top and the bottom of the ship are purely for docking. No fuel will go through them. Let's put the shot of Ship 39's quick disconnect interface next to that of Ship 33 taken by Mary from NSF, the first V2 ship ever to be constructed. On the left we have Ship 33 and on the right Ship 39. There is roughly a 1-year difference between the 2 designs. The biggest difference here is that there are far fewer large and instead more small connections. The second big difference is that both methane and oxygen are separated. The new design has 2 interfaces. Where on the V2 ships it was all 1 large connector, SpaceX is moving to 2 separate interfaces on version 3. Granted, all still together in 1 connector. Now, why is that? Excellent question. There is likely a very simple reason. There's one thing you do not want at all when performing an orbital refueling maneuver. You do not want oxygen and methane to mix at all. And what's the easiest way to achieve this? Right, you separate the interfaces as much as you can. If there is physical space between them and a separate seal, you minimize potential catastrophic failures right out of the gate. The new interface looks more structured and way cleaner than the old one. All preparations for future tests. Starship V3 so far is a crazy mix of goals. You have a payload door for Starlink deployment tests. You have the docking studs for orbital refueling, and you have a new and, for now, seemingly complete heat shield for a safe re-entry. All those are primary goals for the first half of 2026 and for NASA's Artemis 3 launch. And the only reason for combining these aspects in one ship is for... Before I reveal this perfectly timed cliffhanger, hit the subscribe button to stay informed. Like this video if it brought you value and become a wise supporter for extra content. Up to 7 picture galleries per week, satellite, helicopter and ground photos, and 3D animations. Chat with me and gain more insights on the topic you love. Thank you very much. So why do they combine all these aspects in the version 3 ships? Fast-track testing. TikTok, SpaceX. A ship intended for a Starlink deployment doesn't need orbital refueling. An HLS Starship doesn't need a re-entry capable heat shield, and so on. It is a crazy mix to achieve those goals as quickly as possible. So Ship 39 is almost fully stacked inside Megabay 1, and Booster 18 is sadly out of sight, but also already fully stacked inside Megabay 2. That's the current progress on those. December will definitely see first version 3 testing, and I can't wait to see the pair perform. What is still missing are Pad 2 and Massies. Progress on Pad 2 is nothing short of mind-boggling. Work has moved inside. The gantry is almost entirely sealed. It looks like a fortress, ready to take the blast of SpaceX's Raptor 3 engines. The ship's quick disconnect arm for version 3 ships is still located at the Sanchez site right next to SpaceX's base and is likely to roll to Pad 2 any day now. One interesting thing you can see on the gantry is these large ramp-shaped outlets. It's not confirmed, but my theory is that these are there to release any building pressure inside the gantry. If exhaust gases or water vapor can enter the structure, the pressure will be immediately released through these outlets. Both quick disconnects for the booster are filled with propellant lines and electrical and data connections. The construction phase is increasingly shifting towards testing rather than large-scale construction efforts. RGV aerial photography has taken some fantastic shots of the OLM itself sitting on top of the massive flame trench. One thing that stands out is the rectangular jig sitting inside the ring. It was transported down Highway 4 on November 6th, captured by NASA spaceflight's live cams. Chrome TV created a quick model to demonstrate how it is attached to the OLM. SpaceX calls it a ibuprofen, a wordplay on ibuprofen. So it must have something to do with headaches. Its purpose is to test and level out the arms and hold-down clamps on the new Pad 2 OLM. No doubt to fast-track construction and final assembly for what's to come. A Booster 18 static fire. I wouldn't put my money on it yet, but I'm becoming increasingly confident in saying that we'll see our first static fire in December, which brings us to the last item on my list. But before we tackle that, here's a method to get the real news when not watching Why. Jared Isaacman has been renominated by President Trump after Trump had previously withdrawn his nomination. We only know what we see in the news, so getting a full overview is essential and nearly impossible with just a browser search. There is a tool for you to find out, Ground News. I use it regularly for research, and you can follow along at ground.news/why. I use their app and website to see how different outlets around the world frame the same story. It's pretty clear when you look at Ground News. Over 200 sources is massive, but the way many of those outlets phrase their headlines makes it obvious that bias is at play. The left focuses on Isaacman's association with Elon Musk, because of course they do, while the right emphasizes Isaacman's in-space experience. This difference shows how two outlets can cover the same event but lead readers to entirely different conclusions. See each story's factuality, ownership, and bias. Even curated and personalized blind spot feeds that reveal what you might be missing. And I've arranged a special deal just for you, 40% of the Vantage plan. Go to ground.news/why and give it a try today. Alright, now back to cleanup work at Starbase. Poor Pad 1. It looks miserable at this point. SpaceX has now entirely removed the berm that separated the tank farm from this launch pad. They used it to fill the retention pond behind the pad and to cover the deluge showerhead under the pad, likely just to dampen the fall of things they cut out and dropped down. The The OLM ring has been cut in half along a horizontal line to lift out pieces of the underlying plumbing. SpaceX is going step by step here. Remove anything you can before disassembling the main structure. The tower winch responsible for lifting the chopsticks up and down was entirely removed and transported off-site. It is likely to undergo refurbishment before being reintegrated into the tower at a later point. And I could go on with my observations forever. The bottom line is that Pad 1 will soon be removed to make room for the upgrade process. As for timelines for testing and Flight 12, we are looking at late November to early December for the first booster tests and the middle to end of December for a booster static fire at the new pad. For Ship 39, we are looking at first cryo tests in roughly 4 weeks and a static fire in early January. After that, everything is clear for Flight 12, which I still believe will happen toward the middle of January. So that's what it looks like at SpaceX's Starbase right now. Incredibly busy and very much on track for an incredible 2026. Quick reminder, if you want to see how SpaceX is doing from the air with your own eyes, go to redlineheli.com/Felix. $25 off for anyone using the link. The Redline helicopter team is waiting for you. They'll show you the same Starbase views our photographer gets on his Starbase flights, and it is unforgettable stuff. Following a weather scrub on November 9th, Blue Origin's New Glenn team was eagerly waiting for a new launch window to open. And on November 13th, the time had come for NG2. Everything was ready for Blue Origin's big moment. Everything was ready for the launch. And what we saw then can only be described as perfect execution. The US now has access to 2 landing orbital rocket boosters. But let's go through step by step. First, we had a few holds leading up to the launch, but this time those were cleared and we saw the countdown tick down to 0. The deluge system kicked in shortly before ignition and then the rocket took off. After a textbook launch from Florida's Space Launch Complex 36, the almost 100-meter tall rocket gracefully ascended into the blue sky. The moment of maximum aerodynamic pressure, known as max Q, was reached at 1 minute and 35 seconds at about 12 kilometers height. MECO, or main engine cutoff, took place shortly before stage separation at 3 minutes and 5 seconds, followed by stage separation itself. As New Glenn's second stage's 2 BE-3U engines ignited, the first stage was left behind to begin falling back down toward Earth, using its reactive control system to reorient its course toward the landing barge Jacqueline. It was nothing short of spectacular to watch. At 3 minutes and 50 seconds, the protective payload fairing was jettisoned while the second stage continued to ascend. Almost 3 minutes later, at T+6 minutes and 48 seconds, the booster ignited the center 3 of its 7 BE-4 engines, initiating the re-entry burn at a height of about 67 kilometers. These engines are gimbaling, just like the center engines on a Starship booster. The burn lasted a little over a minute, and now the booster used its aerodynamic surfaces to slow itself down and orient it toward the waiting barge. The downrange capability, due to the large strakes on the booster, can clearly be seen in the footage. The booster is almost in a horizontal position when tracking downrange toward the barge. When the booster reignited its 3 center engines, it was already below 3 kilometers in height and closing in on Jacqueline. After 30 seconds, 2 BE-4s shut down and only the center engine provided the thrust to precision land the booster on its target. What's interesting to note is that the booster seemed to hover next to Jacqueline for some time before transitioning over to the actual landing zone above the barge. This might be a safety precaution. We'll see if Blue Origin changes this to a hover slam on their next attempt. Touchdown was confirmed at a little over 9 minutes into the mission, marking one of Blue Origin's biggest milestones achieved yet. It had just become the second company to land a reusable rocket booster in an actual mission safely. One particularly interesting thing to note is that you can actually see the explosive bolts ramming into the barge to secure the booster in place at around 9 minutes and 42 seconds into the launch. So yeah, the booster stays where it is. That is one way to do it. At 34 minutes and roughly 30 seconds, we also got a view of the small robot that Blue Origin uses to inspect the booster after landing to ensure everything is stable. Congratulations to Team Blue Origin, fantastic job on the second launch. The long wait is finally over. A second team was able to land a booster from space. But while the New Glenn booster team already had ample reason to celebrate, the mission was far from over. At 12 minutes and 53 seconds, the second stage engines were shut down, an event known as SECO, or second stage cutoff. For the next 12 minutes, the spacecraft was in a coast phase before its engines were activated one more time at 25 minutes into the mission. After 1 minute and 44 seconds, the final burn was over, and teams eagerly awaited the big moment, payload separation. After all, we were going for Mars. At 33 minutes and 18 seconds, the time had come for Escapade Blue, the first of the twin Mars satellites, to separate from the payload carrier. Its sibling, Escapade Gold, followed 30 seconds later. Even though this was the most critical part of the mission, it was not yet over. A third payload, the Viasat Tech Demonstrator, was turned on 5 minutes later. I watched it live without streaming the launch, and I can only say that I was baffled, amazed, and that this makes me incredibly optimistic about our future in space. Having a second rocket capable of reusing its booster after a flight to orbit is just incredible to see. Thank you, Blue Origin. It was about time this happened. You rock. If you are a regular wine watcher, you likely know what a Mars transfer window is. These time periods, recurring every 25 or 26 months, are also known as Hohmann transfer windows. Let's look at a simplified explanation of this phenomenon. Imagine you are trying to throw a ball to a friend who's running around a track. You can't just throw it at where they are now. Instead, you need to throw it to where they'll be when the ball gets there. You also can't throw it at them when they're approaching you, or they'll hurt their hand. You throw it as they are passing by to reduce impact speed. That's essentially what a Hohmann transfer window is all about. It's the most fuel-efficient path between Earth and Mars. Instead of flying straight at Mars, which would require enormous amounts of fuel, spacecraft follow an elliptical orbit to reach Mars, taking advantage of the Sun's gravity to coast most of the way. Earth and Mars are constantly moving around the Sun at different speeds. Earth completes an orbit in 365 days, while Mars takes 687. This means the two planets are only aligned adequately for this efficient transfer about once every 26 months. To capitalize on this principle, you launch from Earth when Mars is still behind you, sending your spacecraft on a curved path that takes about 6 to 9 months. By the time the spacecraft has reached Mars orbit around the Sun, the planet has advanced far enough on the orbit to meet the spacecraft right on time. That's what's called orbital mechanics, knowing in advance where your target will be during the arrival and calculating the best path to reach it in time. But isn't the next Mars launch window next year? What makes the Escapade mission unique is that it does not use a traditional Hohmann transfer window. Instead, it's parking at a Lagrange point for a year, essentially buying time until the next proper window opens in 2026. Now, what are these Lagrange points? Simply put, they are parking spots in space. When two large objects, like the Earth and the Sun, orbit each other, their combined gravitational pulls create 5 special Lagrange points. At these locations, a spacecraft can stay relatively still without using much fuel because the gravitational forces are balanced. They cancel each other out. Choosing the free parking option for Escapade demonstrates that future Mars missions might also not have to wait years on Earth's surface for the perfect launch date. They could launch any time and wait in space instead. A rally point for the Mars fleet to assemble. Just imagine dozens or even hundreds of starships waiting to depart simultaneously. Rocket Lab, the company that has built Escapade Blue and Gold, has just released more information on its highly anticipated Neutron rocket. They've officially pushed the inaugural launch of Neutron into 2026, marking another delay for the medium-lift vehicle designed to compete directly with SpaceX's Falcon 9. How unexpected. This announcement came during the company's third quarter earnings call on November 10th, where CEO Peter Beck emphasized that the company would rather get the launch right than rush to meet an arbitrary deadline. As much as we all dislike waiting, this is the right thing to do. Space is hard, and as long as there are still areas that the Neutron team doesn't feel comfortable with just yet, it's simply better to take the time for improvement. Beck himself made clear that Rocket Lab's approach differs fundamentally from competitors who have rushed to the pad without adequate preparation.
You won't see us minimizing some qualifier about us just clearing the pad and claiming success and whatnot.
Beck said during the Q3 earnings call.
And that means that we don't want to learn something during Neutron's first flight that could be learned on the ground during the testing phase.
The company aims to deliver the first Neutron rocket to Launch Complex 3 at Virginia's Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport during the first quarter of 2026, with the first launch following shortly thereafter. While Neutron is designed with reusability as a core feature, the first flight won't demonstrate booster recovery. Rocket Lab is still developing its drone ship, aptly named Return on Investment, which Beck said should be ready to support the second Neutron launch. A key factor in the timeline adjustment is the ongoing qualification and testing of the Archimedes engine, Neutron's methane liquid oxygen power plant. 9 of these engines will power Neutron's first stage, generating a combined 673 metric tons of thrust at liftoff. Rocket Lab is operating 2 test stands at NASA's Stennis Space Center in Mississippi on an intensive schedule. 20 hours per day, 7 days a week. This around-the-clock testing regime is designed to compress years of qualification work into months. Leaving California, we head over to Europe, where an orbital Baguette is slated for a launch in 2026. And I'm not even kidding, this is no joke. Germany's Atmos space cargo is taking a step toward establishing European space logistics capabilities, securing a demonstration flight aboard Hyperspace's upcoming Baguette 1 suborbital rocket. What? The partnership, formalized through a memorandum of understanding signed on November 7th, represents a strategic alignment between 2 emerging European space companies. The demonstration mission will fly aboard Baguette 1's inaugural test flight, currently scheduled for 2026 from southern France. Baguette to space from France makes sense to me. For Atmos, the flight represents an opportunity to validate additional technologies for its Phoenix 2 re-entry capsule. This is an upgraded version of the spacecraft that successfully flew its first demonstration mission in April 2025 aboard SpaceX's Falcon 9 Bandwagon 3 rideshare flight. The company's core technology is an inflatable heat shield that enables controlled atmospheric re-entry without the use of traditional ablative materials or parachutes. Phoenix 2 will carry its own propulsion system, enabling the capsule to independently execute deorbiting burns and precisely control its re-entry trajectory and splashdown zone. The capsule maintains the approximately 100-kilogram payload capacity of its predecessor while adding extended orbital mission capabilities and autonomous return functionality. Hyperspace, established in 2019 in Bordeaux, on the other hand, is developing hybrid rocket propulsion systems that combine solid fuel with liquid oxidizers. And the company's Baguette 1 is a 7-meter-tall single-stage suborbital demonstrator. Its purpose is to serve as a technology validation platform for the larger orbital Baguette 1 rocket, which is designed to deliver payloads of up to 235 kilograms to low Earth orbit. Lots of butter and jam, I presume. The Atmos Hyperspace partnership extends beyond a single demonstration flight. The 3-year non-binding Memorandum of Understanding outlines plans to establish a European re-entry logistics capability aboard future OB-1 orbital missions. And you've arrived at the end of the episode. Yay! And from now on, we're doing something different here. Welcome to the inaugural Why Countdown, a fresh segment where we pull back the curtain on the channel's inner workings. Why do we do certain things the way we do? I wanted to keep these quick and punchy at the end of each episode, so we're aiming for 40 seconds, just like that heart-pounding final countdown before a Starship launch. So here's a big question asked by many. Today's topic, those mid-episode sponsors. Actually, they account for 56% of our revenue, helping cover all the costs that keep Y rocketing. We have a huge team of dedicated space fans working on these episodes. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode or know a company that could benefit, drop me a line at contact@whataboutit.net. In an ideal world, we'd fly sponsor free. The more direct supporters we get, the fewer sponsors you will see. Thanks for your support. We're all in this mission together. And that's it for today. Smash the like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. Our Raptor emblem and countless other designs are in there. And if you want to learn more about how SpaceX's Raptor engine works, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Opportunities to and the middle end of the by NASA NASA Spice Flight.